Hello, welcome to our channel.
Hello?
Today I want to talk about why we can't forget our ex.
Yes.
But first I want to ask you a question. Do you think the person on your mind right now is really them? Or is it just a version of them that you've rebuilt in your mind, shaped by your memories?
That's a deep topic. That's a deep topic.
Yeah, it certainly is.
I mean, if I explain it from a psychological perspective, simply put, it's the person you've deeply idealized and formed a profound connection with. And that is precisely why you find it incredibly challenging to truly forget them, even over time. If you could look at it from a healthy, objective perspective, and if everything in your relationship was going well, it wouldn't have ended, right? So something must not have gone right for it to end. And nobody wants that. By the way, you don't want your relationship to end. Because the end of a relationship is a painful process. Everyone gets excited when they start a relationship with someone. They feel so happy when they get married. There are celebrations, weddings, festivities, and all that. But no one ever considers or is prepared for the possibility that one day, sooner or later, this relationship might end. That's why nobody wants it. So, most of the time, we actually can't forget the person we've idealized. If the person we idealize was really that person, then the relationship wouldn't end, right?
Yes. So, after a relationship ends, does one start blaming themselves or do they try to justify the other person? Could being unable to forget sometimes be more about the disappointment of an unfinished story than about true love?
It could be. And by the way, it varies from person to person. We encounter both situations. Sometimes people blame themselves, and sometimes they try to justify the other person. Now, let me answer this in two different ways. If someone tries to justify themselves but still can't forget, that's even worse, because they keep finding themselves in the right. Their logical side tells them they're right, but their emotional side is also very dominant. Both the logical and emotional sides are strong. Then a cognitive dissonance arises here, and this mentally exhausts the person. In fact, if the person can't break out of this vicious cycle, even the flow of life itself starts to be disrupted. On the other hand, in situations where they blame the other person or themselves but can't forget, attribution errors come into play. First of all, we need to accept this. The reason is not the relationship itself. It's not the relationship that causes the end. What matters is the outcome. The relationship is over. That's it now. But if we can't forget while blaming ourselves or the other person, certain thoughts can arise. I've observed this in my clients as well. Like, I truly wish that I could go back in time and perhaps change something significant in the past. Then, our relationship could have continued beautifully and seamlessly from precisely where it regrettably left off. These kinds of profound thoughts often come up. But the reality is, we can't go back to the past. Then people say this, well, maybe if we get together again, or, I can make up for things. I can make them forgive me. I can get them to forgive me. Sometimes people can get into such an emotional state that, it's as if their very soul won't be truly free unless the person whose relationship unfortunately ended completely forgives them. But all of this is really just a result of the brain's decision-making mechanism being disrupted. We should focus more on the outcome. Unfortunately, the relationship is over. It ended one way or another. It doesn't really matter what exactly happened. No one wants this, of course, because it's a painful process, a period of grief. Yes.
But if that relationship actually started again, would it really be like you imagine it in your mind? Or are you just trying to return to an idealized fantasy?
There's a saying, as you know, you can't step into the same river twice. Time keeps flowing. So, even if that relationship starts again, even if your old relationship resumes, which we do see examples of, it won't continue with the same old dynamics. There's a wreckage you need to fix first. So, are we really ready to face that? People never think about this side of things. Now, I don't know. Let me give an example. My relationship with someone ended because I broke their trust and I can't forget them. I say, if they come back to me, I'll regain their trust. But how much can I really fight for this? Maybe their trust was broken even more than I thought. Or I get motivated thinking, with the amygdala's fight response, I can somehow make this happen. But seeing the path and actually walking it are not the same thing. What was the second part of the question?
Are you trying to go back into an idealized dream?
Yes. So in general, We can answer it like this. In general, we're trying to return to an idealized dream. By the way, let me say this. Relationships that have reached the point of divorce, or even those who regret it after divorcing and get back together and manage these processes in a healthy way, meaning relationships that are built on a solid foundation and rebuild trust, end up being established on a much stronger footing. In other words, that separation, the grieving process, and the pain add a lot to those people, and a completely different relationship emerges. Lately, I've been observing this in one of my clients. In fact, it's a very unique experience firsthand.
If they can manage it, reconciling becomes much better. I understand.
But again, the readiness of both parties is important here. At first, both sides approach each other by building walls. They're very cautious, full of prejudices. If those walls come down, which is only possible if both parties feel safe with each other, then something beautiful emerges.
So, what you're saying is, they try to make a new start that's even harder than the first one. But when they do, it goes really well.
Exactly. Most of the time people want to return to the idealized version they have in their minds. But don't forget this. Let me repeat. You can't step into the same river twice. So even if you start over, that relationship will never pick up where it left off. There are walls that need to be overcome first. Yes.
So, do you think it's possible to form a relationship with every person? Or are there some people who, even if they come together, just never have any chemistry between them?
On one hand, I think it's possible, but on the other hand, I also think it's not really possible. Because it's a complicated issue. If the right conditions, environments, and timing are present, in other words, if there's readiness in terms of timing, personal readiness, and situational readiness, and also recent studies show us the effect of pheromones. For example, I read a study like this, for instance. If a man doesn't find a woman's natural scent pleasant, it actually signals that there is no reproductive compatibility. In other words, it said that this also carries the signal that the man and woman shouldn't or can't have children together. But is this statistically possible? Even if there's a 0.001% chance? Yes, anyone can have a relationship with anyone. But as I said, a lot of factors actually need to come together here. When we look at it from this perspective, isn't it so difficult for two people to love each other, to share things, to become central to each other's lives? We shouldn't take relationships so lightly or throw them away so easily, because they're hard to find.
So, how can we forget an ex in a healthy way?
Yes, first of all, you need to accept the process. As you know, it's very hard to accept painful processes. We want to get rid of it as soon as possible. Actually, that's what comes up in your questions as well. So, in order to escape that pain as quickly as possible, our amygdala becomes active again. What do we do? What do we dream of doing? We think, let me go back to them. We want the relationship to start again somehow. We idealize it in our minds and so on. We blame ourselves, or sometimes we justify ourselves to the other person. We blame the other person. We think, if only they had acted differently, I wouldn't be suffering like this, and so on. But as long as we behave this way, we can't enter the grieving process. So first we need to accept it. Yes, the relationship is over. It could start again. That's also a possibility. But that relationship is over. First we must accept it. After we accept it, and after we go through those painful, distressing periods, by the way, I want to draw attention to something here. Why do we call this a grieving process? Because something has ended.
There is a loss.
There is a loss, right? What do we usually use the grieving process for? When we lose a loved one. But it's not just in that case. Exactly. We also go through a grieving process when a relationship ends. Similarly, when we lose a pet we've shared our life with, we also enter a grieving process. We can even go through a grieving process when we lose an object we really love. But the way to get through the grieving process is to first accept it. We're going to say.
Sometimes even leaving the city we live in can trigger a grieving process.
Yes. As long as we don't accept it, we can't get used to it. After we accept it, just see what that pain we've experienced, that grieving process, actually brings to us. I think now we can focus on this. Because from there, we will gain many insights that will be beneficial to our lives. For example, things we won't project onto our next relationship, things we can handle in a healthier way. For instance, this can generally happen. For example, especially those who blame the other person may come to the conclusion that they will never let anyone be at the center of their life again. Or I will continue to keep myself at the center of my life. What is this? In the end, it comes down to the balance of give and take in a relationship, doesn't it? So you can experience your next relationship in a more balanced way now. But these kinds of realizations come to us after acceptance. We will learn these things, so we will accept and we will take our lessons from it. And we will transfer them positively into our lives. I can put it simply like this.
So, dear viewers, how would you answer this question? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments. Maybe this way we can touch someone else's heart as well.
Yes, your comments are very important to us. We are curious about you. We already respond to your experiences, but please also share your questions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Support us. See you in the next video.